Good day, everyone. Allow us to reintroduce ourselves, your new trusted source of information, news you can use, and narratives that truly matter.
And it's no secret where we come from. You've seen us on air and now join us on your new digital journey. I'm Tristan Udalo, Senior Correspondent.
And I'm Chris Paraso, Editorial Director.
And we are NewsWatch Plus.
Now we're also here to explore how technology is shaping the core of journalism. Even how information is consumed. Mga bloggers.
And of course, Chris, one good example is the integration of artificial intelligence or AI in journalism. So let's kick off our discussion. Let's welcome multi-awarded journalist known for her pioneering approach in digital technology. Let's welcome Jackie Manabat.
To provide us with an understanding of the challenges and opportunities in regulating online content, we have with us DICT Assistant Secretary Renato Paraiso, who is also the spokesperson of the agency.
And to shed light on the critical role of journalistic standards in the ever-evolving media landscape, we have veteran journalist and a staunch advocate of media freedom. We have Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility Trustee, Erhel Santos.
And last but not the least, the leading voice in the digital sphere, known for his innovative approach to digital strategy and insights into technological trends, digital expert, Donald Lim.
Thank you to our guests. And before we start, special thanks to Workable for accommodating us today. Workable is the flexible co-working space of Robinson's Land Corporation that offers convenience, ease, and a venue for collaboration. It aims to bring spaces that allow for growth and build connection. Katulad ng ginagawa po natin ngayon.
Earlier, Tristan, you brought up the integration of AI into news reporting. Pero bago tayo dyan magsimula, maybe we can ask our audience. For show of hands, who among you have used generative AI?
Ito po yung ChatGPT, InVideo, marami pa. Basta may gamit ng AI.
O yan. Who among you think AI should not be used by media or journalists at all? Dapat bang gamitin o hindi? Looks like diverse yung ating position ng audience natin, no? Thank you for your participation. So, Jackie, are you currently using AI in your work?
Yes, Chris.
And how do you see AI influencing news reporting?
Well, I see AI as a tool for journalists to make our work easier and to help us to brainstorm ideas. We're now in the age of curation. So AI like Gemini, ChatGPT, InVideo, and others are helping our lives easier so that we could concentrate on fact-checking, on how we tell the stories. So it helps us concentrate on the important aspects of journalism as well.
Coming from Jackie's perspective, no, at least nagagamit na ng mga journalists yung AI. But siguro to Donald, there are many apps, softwares, websites using AI. But on a business perspective, how helpful ito sa operations, yung pag-utilize sa AI?
Same as also when you asked that question 10 years ago, if you should use digital, AI has to be used for good. If AI is not used for good, then it will be used for evil. So the only way for you, like for example in cybersecurity, right? AI is also being used for cybersecurity. The only way for you to combat AI that is being used in cybersecurity when they attack and hack is use AI also as defense. All the more we need to train our people and also business people, also in education. I'm also a professor and sinasabi ng students, can they use AI or not? Right? And are we to say 10 years ago, can students use Google or not to search? Right.
Asek Renato, from a regulatory standpoint, how is the government addressing yung challenges posed by AI?
AI is just a tool. We have to remember that, And as a tool, you can regulate it. But the content of it has to conform with certain freedoms and certain civil liberties that we have. In forms of regulations, we are more keen to regulating the technology as opposed to regulating the use of the technology for content. Kailangan natin tandaan AI as a tool, depende yan if it would be used for good or bad. Pag ginamit ito sa masama, there are already existing laws. So in terms of regulation, I think that's how we should approach it. Approach it and in terms of technology and how to regulate the technology and make sure it would only be used for good.
And earlier, we've asked our audience, no, kung dapat ba gumamit yung mga news people or journalists ng AI. I want to ask Sir Verhel, when is it ethical to use AI, at least in the field of journalism?
First things first, AI is a robot. It is a machine. And the worst that can happen to a human is for a human's ability to be duplicated by a machine. And especially for the journalist. Why? Because two things are important in journalism. One is a sense of discernment, and the other is a sense of thought. Two things that I don't think AI can duplicate in any case. Although I would say that AI certainly is widely useful in facilitating processes. But what kind of processes? I suppose scientific processes. Processes that call for evidence. Processes that are founded on science and therefore are strictly self-regulated in that sense, because it is regulated by truth, by widely acceptable truth. If you ask me whether I use AI, I can only tell you that I use as much modern technologies I can in my work. But hell, I'm not going to allow myself to be duplicated by a machine.
Medyo mahaba-habang debate talaga no, on when is it ethical to use AI. But just a quick follow-up to our panelists. Of course, understanding the limitations of newsrooms today, syempre meron pong mga challenge na na-encounter in terms of resources. And AI really benefit, let's say sa transcription, sir, nakakatulong talaga. And we're doing multi-platform journalism. How about you, Jackie? In your experience, how advantageous is it to, utilize itong mga tools na to?
Well, it's making my work faster because, again, we are already in the age of curation. But I would agree with Sir Verhel here that it could not replace the journalist, especially with the nuances, the cultural nuances. It could never replace the human heart, the discernment, and the heart of storytelling is still being human. I use AI to answer my emails, to transcribe, and whenever I do talks in other countries, I use AI as a language translation tool. And it helps me reach out to the audience that I cannot reach before. So AI is a tool. We should use it as a tool, not to replace us or not to duplicate us as journalists, because again, I would like to stress the point that when we tell our stories, we tell it from the heart and from being human.
Ako, I like to add what Sir Beryl said, no? Kasi sabi nga, walang discernment, no? But if you think about it, AI, number one, is a bit old already. It's almost a century old, 1940s, 50s. And then, if you look at 1996 and 1997, when Deep Blue went up against Kasparov, Kasparov won, and then after that, Deep Blue won. What was very interesting was after that, AI surged ahead. In 2011 was Jeopardy. AI versus all the Jeopardy champs, AI won. And then 2017, Carnegie Mellon, the university, they created an AI and won against 4 poker champions. Which means now AI has learned how to bluff and read human and everything. That shows you how a robot can be programmed to be so advanced, right? To really compete with human. I agree with the hard side, but and I agree that the basic right now is for humans to master AI and not the other way around.
I hate for journalism to be compared with Jeopardy and chess. But all the same, I have been greatly helped by modern technology. I mean, to me, AI is modern technology more than anything else. It is probably the most advanced form of modern technology. Jackie said about nuances. In journalism, there are a lot of nuances. Nuances of culture, nuances of character, national character, nuances of national history. These are things that you cannot collect and fed into a machine for that machine to be able to work better than a journalist. You try remembering some of the good old journalists and historians that we've had. Nobody could replace them with AI. Why? It's discernment. It's understanding culture. It's understanding history. It's understanding the national character for which they are doing their own trade.
AI actually makes our lives easier, but at the same time, may limitations din siya.
Yes.
And we understand that the government is crafting a framework no, on AI. I suppose the ICT is involved there. Ano ang progress dun sa...
We're working with our legislators on these emerging technologies, including AI. Right now, even if you scour the entire planet of a government that really regulates AI, there's none. Because there's still this recognition that this is still something that's ongoing, emerging. Once you regulate something unknown, it really leads to disaster. Probably with the ICT's part, that's our focus right now. Knowing on how to efficiently use AI, what are the benefits of AI, and what are the ills we should prevent so we can come up with better regulation on AI. I think that is a recognition as well that is adopted by our legislators. So the whole talks on regulating this AI is on pause right now. So, but again, there's this recognition, and maybe the focus is on other emerging technologies, including bantayan ano yung development to sa AI.
First part pa lang po ng discussion, but let's open the questions para naman po sa ating audience.
So I have a question for Ms. Jackie. As a pioneer in digital storytelling and journalism, how do you envision the future integration of AI in newsrooms? And what opportunities do you see for enhancing audience engagement and trust through these technologies?
Well, with the emergence of AI, and we see now that there are AI sportscasters, AI newscasters, I think the next trend will be the audience will be looking for authenticity. We'll be looking for human news people. We are redefining what journalist is. We are redefining it, really. And I would define it as someone who does service, a trained journalist who knows how to use tools such as AI, social media. And the next trend will be people will be looking for authentic, real, relatable journalists. So right now that there's AI, we should master it, master the tool. I mean, you're right. 10 years ago, who would have thought that Google would be, everywhere, and we would be using it this much? Facebook was just then trading carrots in Farmville. TikTok, we didn't see it as a platform for news. So what we're doing right now is mastering its algorithm, mastering how we use this as tools, and then pull back the audience on how traditional media, old school journalism should be. Because again, we are here as communicators, right? And we cannot be effective communicators if we cannot reach the audience. Now, the audience will have a mistrust on AI. We should go back to old school journalism, use AI, use these tools to regain the real journalism that we have enjoyed for decades.
Thank you so much for your question. But I guess isa rin sa tanong sa atin is how quick can we catch up and master AI? Because before, sometimes mayroon tayong refusal to learn technology. Pero ngayon, di ba, parang nag-catch up din yung mga newsroom. And eventually, let's say sa TikTok, yung boses na naririnig natin, yung mga voice-over, isa yung tono, di ba? Alam mo na kaagad, food vlog to. Another question.
Hello, my question is for Sir Donald. What role do you think AI can play in combating fake news and verifying the authenticity of information?
I think AI is the best tool to really combat. Before, when I used to be in media also, so I used to head digital for a media outlet. There are a lot of piracy, a lot of false videos that are out there. AI can now use DNA imprinting. So even if the sound is like 6 seconds, almost the same, this is pirated. The platform should bring it down already. Automatic yan. So I think the rules have to be in place, especially for the publishers, so it doesn't get published. But at the same time, now I was, thinking about what Asek said. It's so hard to regulate AI. It's like the internet is there. Okay, please regulate the internet. How can you say? Because you cannot even say good and evil. Because in the end, what is really good, right? But what we know is that right now, for example, like a ChatGPT. If you put in ChatGPT, I want to bomb this building. Can you help me draw up a plan? That becomes very, very, kasi BAM can be, it's for construction, for good. If you are running the platform, will you allow it to go through and give the real tips to someone? Right? So I think it's used tremendously by a lot of the platforms, but I think the human side is actually more questionable.
As we explore technologies in reshaping journalism, social media stands out as a key platform. It's not just a means of communication, pero it's a dynamic space that shapes how news or information gets consumed.
Yes, and in fact, diba, social media is now integral to the news ecosystem. Facebook, TikTok, X or former Twitter. Ilang beses na rin naging laman ng mga balita yung mga nakikita natin sa social media, diba, yung mga viral story, eventually nagkakaroon ng mga follow-up stories na ginagawa ng mga journalist.
Speaking of virality, di ba, very influential ang SOCMED, lalo na sa mga influencers. Pero may latest Reuters Digital News Report na it raises questions, critical questions about the trustworthiness of these platforms. It highlights growing concerns among users about discerning reliable information. It has also underscored the role of algorithms in spreading misinformation.
And I think isa sa mga best person to talk about engagement and strategy sa, sa nagbabagong mukha ng pagbabalita is Jackie. Jackie, paano ba nag-iba yung way ng pag-consume ng mga tao ng information or ng news sa social media? At yun nga, yung in terms of strategy, how do you define or find good stories na, people would react on?
Well, it sounds so simple. We have to speak their language. During the pandemic, when I jumped into TikTok and used it for news, it was really hard. It's difficult to understand it because it's entertainment-centered platform. But there are three things why I experimented on TikTok. First, I was experiencing anxiety back then because it's pandemic, I'm on the ground, I'm working, I'm away from the family, and then I see these posts or cross-posted TikTok videos on Facebook and Instagram, and they look so happy. This is my second reason. The influencers, they capture the audience. The audience listening to them and not us during the pandemic. Because, again, this is my third reason, there was a news fatigue. And the lost audience are there on TikTok. I mean, if you look at the Comelec data, more than 60% of the voters during that time are the young generation. And the young generation, where are they? They are on TikTok. So we need that audience. And there was a lot of misinformation, disinformation during the pandemic. It was also the election season. So what do we do as communicators? We jump into TikTok. As I always say, you go where the battle is, you go where the audience is. And again, you use it as a tool to pull them back, to read, to listen to us, trained journalists, because we have to be there for them. I mean, the influencers can do it. Why can't we journalists? We are trained to verify. We are trained to communicate. We are trained to tell the stories. You make them feel that you are relatable, that you're authentic, and then you can bring back that trust. Because I think that is the problem. Hindi lang siya recently nawala yung tiwala ng audience sa media.
Isa pa rin sa terminology na bring up whenever we talk about social media is algorithm. Kung ano yung interest natin, kung ano yung pinapanood natin na madalas, yun yung nag-a-appear sa feed natin. Hence, kapag medyo hindi reliable yung information from an influencer na pinapanood natin, yun din yung nag-a-appear lagi sa atin. But I want to ask Asek Ray, sir, sa part ba ng DICT, meron bang measure to somehow regulate yung algorithm, yung nakikita sa news feed ng mga tao? May ganun ba? Is there such thing as regulation?
We're speaking about nuances, and the nuance of social media and algorithm in terms of journalism, it's slanted. It really caters to a particular interest of a person. So if you look at your feeds, it really caters to your biases. Yeah. So, for example, si Jackie is pro, Sir Verhel is anti. If I'm anti, more of the Verhel's feeds. And here's the sad part. But if you are in the middle, just telling the truth, more often than not, your story or your pieces don't go to the news feeds at all because it doesn't cater to any bias. Now, to answer the question is there any regulation when it comes to algorithms? So that goes into regulation of social media platforms. There's an inherent challenge there in the Philippine setting. The most prominent and the most significant challenge is we cannot acquire jurisdiction over these social media platforms. So even if you craft a law, how do you enforce it? They don't have offices here. That question of jurisdiction is really a big challenge. How do we address it? As a government institution, DICT reaches out to these social media platforms and do MOAs so their community policies would be catered to the Filipino setting. In fact, in the recent times where there's a prevalence of fake news and deep fakes, most of them responded. To be fair to our friends in the social media platforms, they responded. Now, if you see your news feeds, there would be a tag there. If it's AI generated, if it's fake news, it would be tagged as AI generated.
Yun siguro yung magandang development niya is organizations. They're transparent to tell that it's AI generated. Actually, even in mga wire stories, mga wire organizations, they say that this is AI generated. So, kay Mr. Donald, paano pa may enhance yung ganito?
Since I've been in social media for a lot, for a long time, you know that the algorithms are very different. No? Facebook uses the edge rank algorithm. You have TikTok, very different algorithm. Mas bumababad ang tao. That's when you get your users. Wala siya sa context. Facebook is very contextual based. Like what Asek is saying. If you're reading more of this, they'll feed you more of that. Instagram, all of these platforms have their own algorithms. Wag nyo nang isipin o asahan that you can regulate. Right? But do understand that in social media, there is a balance of power between the community also. Right? If it's really false, then I hope that the community will also report it. Otherwise, it stays there. I'd also like to comment on the changing landscape. What we saw during COVID was what we call escapist need. Tumatakas tayo kasi sobrang stressful. Everything is very stressed. Kaya nga, you will see also when we were looking at all the articles on media, before, anything bad news was actually hitting. Pag bad news before COVID. But during COVID, it has to be good news and feel good. So we're seeing that shift. But bottom line, what everyone is saying is true. What we always say, content has to be on demand and at the same time on point. Otherwise, if it's too long, it's going to be, you lose the audience immediately.
Okay, parang ang tagline po ng NewsWatch Plus, impormasyong napapanahon at on demand. Anyway, speaking of news avoidance, sir, we're talking about news fatigue, news avoidance. I think also in the same Reuters report, it was mentioned na yung users, pero US setting siya na they prefer listening to influencers than news people. Parang mas gusto nilang makinig ng balita from someone they find relatable. How do we drive our audience back doon sa talagang legitimate na nagbabalita?
We play the long game. Don't get caught up by the vanity metrics. Just play the long game. We are journalists. We are trained storytellers. We verify we have the ethics. Huwag kayong padala dun sa mga likes and shares. We could do what the influencers are doing. So when we play the long game, we inform them, we empower them hanggang sa mabalik na natin yung tiwala nila sa atin. The influencers, yes, they are there for their livelihood. That's why we should look, bakit sila effective? Because they have the trust of the people. They're showing who they really are. And they're playing the long game. So for journalists, us journalists, we need to play the long game. And we have to be there where the audience is. We have to be where the battle is.
That's from the journalist's point of view. From the government point of view, this regulation, would you rather push self-regulation then?
I think we discussed the challenges in regulating the platforms. Now, if you're asking me on if we should regulate the content, initially I would think, yeah, it would be useful or it would be very advantageous for government for self-regulation. But the thing is, there's one component that has to be proven. It's trust in that body who would self-regulate their peers.
Anything against self-regulation is against the democratic constitution. That is the problem. The broadcast media are only regulated because they are using state tools. As they say, democracy is probably not necessarily the best system of government, but among those that we know, it is probably the best. But all the same, democracy has its own downsides. And we just have to live with that. Every time when I ask, do we have to re-educate? We don't have time to re-educate 115 million people. Me, you ask me, I choose a constituency. I choose a certain number of people. I deal with them. I don't deal with all the others because that's about the only burden my own logistics can carry.
Laging tanong natin kapag AI kasi is usapin ng trabaho din, di ba? Parang will AI replace journalists? Paano na yung trabaho? Kaya parang somehow may resistance din pag ipag-uusapan yung AI. But for Sir Donald, parang how should we view this in a practical perspective?
We always say AI will replace humans, but in a way, it's really the humans will be replaced by humans who understand AI. I already see, ang next reporting would be like what Jackie is saying, 5 minutes, verify if it's true or not. Yun ang interview mo. So it's going to be who would master AI best and fastest. Mm-hmm. And that becomes the next global standard. That has become the next occupation standard. AI across all of us, we should become experts. AI is generic siya eh. Using it to your day-to-day tasks. That is the challenge. That's why we have to learn it immediately.
Well, if the journalists allow themselves to be replaced by AI, they will be replaced by AI. It's all about whether you are going to allow AI to rule our lives or not. But that is not to say that we should live with AI. We cannot but live with AI. We cannot but live with modern technology. That's how it is. The simple idea is, how do you live with it without losing your soul? Also understand that freedom is not absolute. No? In fact, you think we are free, things are fine. That is not true. It's about a multiplicity of voices. And in this multiplicity of voices, kasali AI dyan. Kasali lahat dyan. Kaya nga yung DICT, mahihirapan talaga yan. We will not exchange places with the DICT. Given the parameters of the democracy deal that we have gone into, it will be difficult.
Should newsrooms or news organizations come up with their own AI? Pwede bang mag-invento yung ibang mga news organizations ng AI? Sarili nilang version?
Yes, and it's possible. If we're talking about dying industry of journalism, if you don't evolve, we die. We just have to live with it. We just have to master it. Para hindi the other way around that AI is using us, we should use AI for our sake. Ito naman yung kinaganda ng journalism. I see the next 5 years na magkakaroon ng mistrust sa AI-generated articles. Kaya kailangan na may journalists. And they need authenticity, they need the realness of journalists. So that's the good news for journalists.
Sir Donald and maybe Asek Ray, let's say sa AI po, no, ano po yung nakikita nyong trend in the future? Sabi niyo po kanina, medyo outdated na nga yung AI, but what's the future like?
If you're talking about just news media, I mean, marami yan kasi from content creation, content management, even how do you scour the internet. But AI is going to be used across everything. So if you look at every industry, if you Google any industry that you want and use how AI affects, it will be there. That's why it's a race on who will adopt it.
Sir Vejero was saying that he doesn't want to trade places with me. Same here. I don't want to trade places because there is an equal, bigger responsibility for journalists right now with the advent of AI. Because AI just picks up bits and pieces from various sources. It's not the source of truth. And I think for journalists right now to evolve, to adapt, they have to reestablish themselves as the truth tellers. You can only do that by mastering the tools of AI.
As much as we want this to continue, no, good things come to an end. So probably last words from our guests.
I mean, AI is for everyone to use, to manage, to make good use of it, or you choose to not make good use of it. It's up to us. I think we are in this time of this century or of this age where we can really become very competitive as a nation, as people. So it's up to us if we want to harness that power. In AI, there's what you call the singularity concept. Na machine and human is equal na. I am not agreeable to that. I think humans will always be there. It's always a race, no? What they call the next AI race. And I hope that in the Filipinos, us as a country, we work together and we win this. Tapos na yung mga ibang race. Gibigay mo na eh. Right? But the next AI race can be something that we can work together, right? And become superior at.
For journalists, just remember that in everything that you do, especially about AI and modern technology, all these things should be measured against one particular thing. If you happen to be a journalist, it's a set of values. And these values are basically moral and ethical ones. Anything that happens, just set it there. You can go wrong probably with your opinion. You can go wrong with how you have read things. But you cannot be wrong by the measure of your conscience. That's only. May plurality of voices yan eh. Ano, bayaan nyo lang. Basta you are coming from a righteous place, that's good enough.
I go back to the point that, in this day and age, we have to adapt. And we have to, use technology, familiarize ourselves with technology. As Donald said, the fear of losing jobs to AI is not real. People will be replaced by people who know how to use AI. So I think that is the message that, don't be technologically adverse, adapt, embrace it.
I agree with you. The technology, the tools, is redefining what journalism is. It's not new. Dati pa naman, bago mag-TV, bago mag-radio, and the social media, it has been redefining journalism. But those who will survive are the ones who knows how to use AI and this technology.
Thank you once again to our guests and our audience. I'm Chris Paraso.
And again, special shout out to Workable. Thank you so much for accommodating us today. Workable is the flexible co-working space of Robinson's Land Corporation that offers convenience, ease, and a venue for collaboration. So it aims to bring spaces that allow growth and build connection, like this one. Thank you so much to our guests, the panelists, and to our audience. Thank you for joining us.